Josh, unmute yourself.
Myself. And all right, so it's 6:30, April 6th, 2022, and Board of Selectmen, Board of Health meeting is now in session. Let's see, I have a lot of things open here. First item on the agenda is coronavirus update. Deb, I see you're on the phone. You want to give us some information? You're muted, Deb.
Sorry. The information that I have now is I will report it as I get it through the state, but a reminder that our positive COVID numbers, most of the positive cases now are not coming to me through the state, but rather people who are doing home tests who are calling me to let me know that. If you have a positive home test, there's nothing that says you have to report it to the local Board of Health. So the numbers, I'll certainly report the numbers that I have, but I just want people to know these are not real, the real true numbers. So for the month of March, we had 16 reported cases. And for the month of April right now, we only have 1. Apart from those 16 reported cases, I had 5 cases of people who just called to let me know that they had tested positive with home tests. If you do test positive with a home test, you can certainly call me and I will be happy to send you all of the updated guidance, which I have been, sending to these home test people. They're just as sick as the people naturally that have tested in other venues. And they do, some of them do need that guidance to get them through the new guidelines. The other thing that came out yesterday from the Department of Public Health was all of the providers in the area received information about where the antiviral drugs were available for their patients. For instance, today I had somebody that did call me to report a home test, and he did call his PCP and was waiting for the callback to know where to go to get the oral antiviral meds, similar to the meds that came out in the past for the flu, like the Tamiflu. We now have these antiviral meds appropriate for any of the COVID vaccines. So I think that's new today. I think a lot of people now will be taking the antiviral meds, and it's important to get them at the beginning of the COVID, the first couple of days. So I do have our 2-week testing rate that covers the dates from March 20th to April 2nd. We had 202 residents that were tested, and 8 of them were positive. And again, those are the PCR tests. So that's it. As far as our COVID webpage goes, our vaccination data that we have published really hasn't changed. It comes out once a week on Thursday. So the people that, we've had the vaccine out now for a long time, and, people that have wanted the vaccine and the boosters, I think, have certainly had access to receive them. We're still doing our clinic at the Lynn City Hall on Monday nights, 4 to 6. And no appointment is necessary. You can register online, but you can certainly walk in. And we did have a fair amount of people this past Monday that came in for that second booster shot that was approved last week. But again, that's open only for Lynn and Nahant residents. And so if anybody needs or wants that second booster, it's not recommended, but it is available for anybody that meets the criteria to receive it. That's all I have. John, do you want to add anything about the water tests or?
You're still muted, John.
Thought I had it. All right. So thanks, Deb. There's a lot been said in various media outlets about testing of wastewater, and the larger the testing, the larger the territory, the larger the sampling, the better. The numbers are not reliable when you have a very small sampling pool, and it has been found to be helpful where it's being done across the country. And it does give you an idea of how things are heading. So it's something that continues to be looked at seriously across the country, and we should expect that the sampling and data analysis should be refined as time goes on. Meanwhile, people need to be reminded occasionally that no matter how good our numbers, the pandemic has not ended. The same common sense measures that we've been using in the last couple of years still apply. You may have heard that some of the metrics and measures have changed slightly, but the basics remain the same. We look at the incidence of ill citizens, and we look at the level of the vaccination rate, and we continue to try to get people, as many people vaccinated as possible. Not only do we continue to have access for Nahant citizens at Lynn City Hall, but if you go to mass.gov on the web and you click on the COVID-19 section at the top of the page, and you put in your zip code and the criteria that you're looking for, doses of booster shots for people 12 and over, and you hit the search button, you're going to get a long list of available sites in Lynn, Swampscott, Salem, Revere, etc. So we encourage people to not only get the initial vaccinations, but the boosters as well. And we in public health continue to try to keep up with what we consider our normal public health work. So please bear with us as we try to juggle what we think of as the routine, which is never routine in public health, as well as the ever-changing world of COVID-19. On that, I'll end there. Thank you.
All right, thanks, John, and thanks, Deb. Deb, I wasn't aware of the antiviral medication, so that's interesting. That's new, yeah.
That is new. And I was just thinking, I have the, I can in the chat room, if you want, I can post the website where people can go to find out where it's available. The only thing is you do need to have a physician's order. So it's available at all of our local CVS's right now, but you can't really walk in and just ask for it. You have to have it prescribed.
Yeah.
But like I said, all of the doctors, all the providers in our area received this information yesterday. So I'll be happy to post that website.
Yeah.
To add that to our website as well, Deb, if you email it to Kristen and I.
Okay, I will. And I'll have to email it to our web designer too.
And I'll just add to this part of the meeting that, given the April school vacation that's coming up and Easter holiday, we will be doing another COVID test distribution over the next week or two. So we don't have the final date, the date finalized, but we will make a public announcement and we'll do another one or two opportunities for folks to come and pick up free COVID test kits.
Also of note is that since the mask mandate has been rescinded, we are seeing more cases of influenza, the flu, right, John? And particularly in school-age children. So it's interesting. We probably took it for granted that the masks were helping prevent people from getting COVID, but in fact, preventing other germs from spreading as well. And Nahant and Swampscott elementary schools have seen an increase in the flu cases right now too. This has been, I'm surprised we didn't have any cases for the longest time, and now we're starting to get our cases come in too, so. And this is National Public Health Week, just to throw that out there.
And, there are still at-home test kits available for pickup at Town Hall. Tony, I assume people can do that in addition to the distribution events you have planned?
Yep,
Can just-
absolutely. They're also available at the library, and the school has been distributing them as well at drop off and pickup during the school days. So yeah, plenty of opportunity to get a free test kit from the town.
All right. Thank you for that overview of the Corona situation, Deb and John. And if there's nothing else, we'll move on to opening comments. Okay, the 2022 resident parking stickers are now available for purchase. Visit nahant.org. Parking stickers are $10 each. All outstanding bills must be paid to the town, and the census must be completed. Real estate bills were mailed out on April 1st, 2022, and are due May 2nd, 2022. The compost area is now open on Wednesdays and Saturdays from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. A 2022 resident sticker is required. Visit Nahant Public Works Department at nahant.org for accepted material. Recycling for metal and white goods, TVs, computers, etc. begins April 30th. Recycling dates are the last Saturday of each month from 8 a.m. to 12 noon behind the DPW garage on Flash Road. 2022 resident stickers are required. Visit the Public Works Department at nahant.org for accepted material. Certain fees may apply. The Charles Kelly Scholarship is now accepting essays until April 15th. So, that's coming up. Visit the scholarship page at nahant.org for full description of essay instructions. Mail or drop off completed essays and application to Kristen Taylor at Nahant Town Hall, 334 Nahant Road. Annual town election information. The election is Saturday, April 30th, 2022. April 8th is the last day to register to vote in the election. April 22nd by 5 p.m. campaign finance reports are due to the town clerk. May 31st, 2022 by 5 p.m. 30-day campaign finance report. Reports are due to the town clerk. Visit the election chief page under the town clerk's page at nahant.org for more information. Jean or Mark, do you have any additional opening comments?
Yeah,
I don't, Mr. Chair.
Josh, just a couple of house cleaning things. My understanding from some comments that have been made is that the ramp down at the wharf needs a real cleaning again, because the hydro board riders and any of the fishermen that are using it are complaining about the algae on there again. So
Yep.
hydro board riders are talking about going down there and cleaning it themselves. And I don't think we want that. I think we need to get a couple of guys down there and clean that up.
All right. I'm sure Tony can get in touch with DPW superintendent and get that done. I know obviously some of the lobstermen may be in the water already. I'm looking out the window to see if I see any boats. And most of the boats that are stored on the wharf right now are being launched May 14th. So there's going to be, I know the Dory Club floats are going in April, actually May 1st. So the ramp will be in heavy use very soon. So yeah, let's get it cleaned up.
Yeah, as long as somebody's using it, it needs to get cleaned.
Yep.
If I can jump in on that, there are, the town has some limitations to being able to clean the ramp regularly. For that reason, the harbor master engaged a lot of the users of the ramp. And we developed an informal agreement that we would be, cleaning the ramp essentially between May and October. Every time a low tide, an extreme low tide occurred during, regular DPW work hours. We've talked a little bit about buying a secondary pressure washer that could be utilized for the wharfingers that could kind of supplement cleaning in between the DPW's regular pressure washing. But we don't have, the water's not on yet, and we do have a limitation to when we can begin and when we need to end that regular scheduled cleaning. I know the request here came in in March, and it's only April 6th. So we will get down there. Certainly we don't want anybody slipping. We don't want anybody else doing the job for us, but the water's not on yet. And maybe we need to revisit that conversation, but there has to be some understanding, as far as what our limitations are, as when we can get down there. So certainly, we'll be doing it between May and October. If we need to start a little bit sooner, I'll have to talk to Zach about what our capabilities are in that regard.
Yeah, so what I'd suggest, Tony, is we can, obviously the tides are quite predictable. So why don't we put together a schedule and post it so there's no ambiguity about when it's going to get done and what months.
Good idea. Hey, one other thing with the area down there, a couple of complaints on the roped off area at the eastern end of Tudor Beach. When is that coming down, Tony?
We're working on it right now. We put the cement blocks there, working with the resident at the end of the beach as a storm surge protection measure. We've started, Zach and the DPW started this week removing beach entry barriers. So I'm sure it'll be happening in the upcoming weeks. I know the weather's warm during the day right now, and people are eager to get back outside, but we do have a cleanup process, and kind of shifting of the seasons of the equipment. There's a lot of work that goes into it, so bear with us. We're itching to go as well.
Yeah, and I, the question gets asked of me, and I'm just asking the question.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Mark, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I'm all set, Mr. Chairman.
All right. I do have one more, hopefully not too lengthy comment. I'm approaching the end of my term here as selectman, and when I look back on the past 3 years, I feel very good about the direction the town is headed in. A lot of progress has been made. I feel good about the board of selectmen and the town administrator and the employees. We're all working in a cooperative manner and all pulling in the same direction. Very importantly, I think over the last 3 years, the town has gotten its financial house in order. We're protecting and maintaining, enhancing our conservation open spaces and recreational spaces. And we're moving forward on important infrastructure issues that have been lingering, like the new sewer line that is, as we speak, being installed in Linway, and the dredging of the drainage ditches system that's taken place over the last couple of years after 10 years of no maintenance. And taking on these issues is not always easy, and it certainly is not always as fast as I would hope. But the improvements to our infrastructure and public spaces and the collaboration we're seeing in the town, I think are obvious. So I feel like great progress has been made over the last few years. There's plenty more to be done. And I know that the Board of Selectmen, the TA, will continue to step up to the next round of challenges. And, with that in mind, I'm hoping to continue my term on the Board of Selectmen to see some of these things through. In the coming year, we're planning for the future with an emphasis on coastal enhancements, protection from storms. You'll see articles this annual town meeting addressing affordable and elderly housing planning. That's a top priority for the town. Continuing to improve the drainage of the lowlands area. Continuing with sewer system improvements that are overdue, and more enhancements and improvements to our precious open spaces and recreational areas. So I know the rest of the board and the town administrator and all the employees of the town are up for the challenges, and we're looking forward to continuing the progress. So hopefully the residents share my optimism for the future, and looking forward to hopefully making my small contribution to the town of Nahant over the next few years. All right, so new business. We have many event requests. This is one thing I forgot to mention. I'm so happy to see everything coming to life from a community perspective. Now that we're coming out from under the shroud from COVID, and I think the number of event requests we have tonight is kind of a testimony to that. And we did get permission from Dan Scripp, our town council, to sort of list these off all individually, right, Dan? And so with that, I will try to do that, or actually I'll let one of you guys make a motion and we can list all of these event requests under one motion. And if for some reason we want to separate it one out, we can do that. But you don't want to have a shot at that?
Josh, I'll try, Mr. Chairman. I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the following event requests. Let's see, for the third annual Easter Parade on April 9th, starting at 11 o'clock. For the Nahant Women's Softball League from May 2nd, 2022 to September 1st, 2022, Monday through Thursday at 6:15 p.m. at the Lowland Softball Field. For the Nahant Men's Softball League from April 15th, 2022 to September 15th, 2022, Monday through Thursday at 5 p.m. at the Lowland Softball Field. For the May Day Arts in Nature event on Saturday, May 14th, 2022 at Lodge Park from 9:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. Let's see, a couple more here. For the YMCA Metro North Stride along the Tide 5K roadways on May 15th, 2022, starting at 8:30 a.m. For the Hot Youth Spring Soccer on Saturdays from May 7th, 2022 to June 25th, 2022, starting at 8 a.m. at the Flash Road Soccer Fields. That it? No, hold on. For the for the event request for the Nahant Public Library event for the Apollo Club of Boston on Saturday, June 5th, 2022 at 3 p.m. in the main hall at the Nahant Town Hall. For the American Legion Flag Retirement Ceremony on June 10th, 2022, beginning at 6 p.m. on Short Beach in front of the Nahant Life Saving Station. And I believe that's it.
Seconded.
Okay, discussion. First of all, I think you might have just saved us all half an hour. So thank you. Let's see, on the May Day event, the event has already been discussed with the police department and fire department. DPW will be assisting with the setup in preparation and the details for the day. So that's been squared away. There's been a request to be paid for those services. I do want, this is actually a good opportunity to remind people that are organizing events that if there is a police detail or participation from town employees, that the event organizer is normally expected to cover those costs. So just so people are aware of that. See anything else on the Apollo Club concert at the Nahant Public Library. I'll read this statement here from Sharon. Nahant Public Library invites the public to the annual concert by popular men's choral group, the Apollo Club of Boston. As the second oldest men's song group in the country, the Apollo Club of Boston is made up of business and professional men who have serenaded since 1871. That must make them quite old. With folk songs, love songs, show tunes, sea chanties, and light classical music. The concert will close with traditional singing of the Nahant hymn, written in 1990 by Nahanters Susan Deneen and Robert Rich. Admission is free, and we ask for a donation to the Friends of Nahant Public Library. Reservations are not required. Refreshments will be served following the show. And those are the only notes I have on that long list of events that are upcoming. I don't know if there's any other discussion from anyone else.
Yeah, I'm just not sure on the flag retirement ceremony at the life saving station. If people have a flag that needs to be retired, do they just drop it off at some point? Not sure how that is handled. I'll look into it and I'll post it on the website.
All right.
I'm happy to drop them off. You know, if folks want to drop them off at the town hall, we can collect them there as well, and figure out how to get them down. Deb, I saw you raised your hand.
Well, I was at a meeting at the Coast Guard station this morning, and that was brought up too. So yes, if anyone has flags that need to be retired, they can drop them off at the Coast Guard station, which is open every Friday night from 5 to 8, or they can bring them to any of the Legion members. The other thing they asked me to bring up about flags was that it was noted at the Little League field that the flag is in bad repair and needs to be changed to I guess they said it was shredding, and it doesn't meet the standards for, the flags that should be flying in the town. I'm not sure who replaces that, to tell you the truth.
I'm sure we I'll look into it. I'm sure we could figure it out.
All right, is there any additional discussion? Hearing and seeing none, roll call vote on all those events.
Gene Canty, aye.
Mark Cullen, aye.
Josh Andrew, aye. And I just wanted to mention that the last year that May Day event was a lot of fun at Lodge Park. So there'll be artists and craftspeople selling their wares and music and so on. So encourage everyone to get up and enjoy that as well. The next item on the agenda is a vote to appoint a tenant-elect member to the Nahant Housing Authority. Do we have a motion on that?
Sure, I'll do it. Go ahead, Gene.
No, no, I was just having a brain cramp for a minute here. I haven't really seen, I suspect that something was sent out, but I haven't seen anything on either of these women. And so I'm just wondering, I'm going to be voting blindly, and I'd rather not do that. Can we put this off till the next meeting?
Yeah, I think we can do that. I know we received their, just sort of the cover, the letter of application, but there wasn't included any background. So if you'd feel more comfortable gaining a little background on these appointments, then we can put it off to next time.
I
And
know-
I'm not stopping you from voting. You and Mark can vote if you're familiar with them.
No, I mean, I think.
Sorry.
As far as I know, Tony, is there an urgency to this or?
Well, I know the current tenant-elect, Susan Bonner, who is one of the applicants here seeking to be reappointed. Her term ends this month, but I'm looking through my email and can't find the exact date. So I'm not sure if if that appointment lapses before our next meeting or after.
Yeah.
I'm Mr. Chairman, I'm ready to vote on this. And I think the two of us could probably do it.
All right. I mean, I know Susan Bonner's been doing this for quite a long while. That's kind of the limit to what I know. She's on the board, on the authority now, and has been involved for quite a long while. So,
if you're comfortable doing it now, the process would be that you nominate both and then take your vote.
okay. So,
I'll make the motion, Mr. Chairman.
yeah, let's go ahead.
I move that the Nahant Board of Selectmen nominate Susan Bonner for the tenant board member seat on the Nahant Housing Authority.
Second,
And then we can nominate the second candidate as well and have two votes open. Is that correct, Dan?
I think we need to vote on this.
Yeah.
This one first.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, one at a time would be the best bet.
Okay. All right. Any discussion? I mean, I think we've had the discussion that we had two candidates for this appointment, and we have a long document explaining why this appointment, what this appointment is about. But basically, it's that there is one tenant that is a resident of the housing that represents to serve on the the Nahant Housing Authority. So that's the purpose of this position. So that's about as much background as I can offer at the moment.
So we can have a roll call vote on this nomination.
Yeah.
That's all it is at this point.
Yeah, so is there any other discussion on the nomination of Susan Bonner?
Yeah, I would, the way I would look at this is, given the length of time that she's been in the job and What I
Oh, Gene,
think-
before we do that, I think all we're doing right now is voting to nominate her. And then we're
Okay.
gonna have to Kathleen Baldwin also,
Okay,
and then we can vote when we want.
all right,
Okay, so roll call vote on the nomination, not the appointment.
Gene Canty, aye.
Mark Cullen and
Josh Antrim, aye.
I move,
Next motion,
I move that the Naha Board of Selectmen nominate Kathleen Baldwin for the tenant board member seat on the Naha Housing Authority.
Second,
any discussion on the Kathleen Baldwin nomination? Just thank you, Kathleen, for putting your name forward. And with that, roll call vote.
Mark Cullen and I.
Gene Canty, aye.
Josh Antrim, aye. So now we can vote for the person to appoint to the tenant board member on the Nahant Housing Authority.
Mr. Chairman,
Chairman, right, just before you vote, I did find some of that background info you were looking for.
Yeah.
So if I can just read it quickly before you take your vote.
Sure,
Thank
you.
So Sue Bonner, currently the tenant appointment, tenant elect board member, her seat expires on April 24th. Due to a change in the law that this past year, the Board of Selectmen are now required to make the appointments to fill this seat. Applications from residents to fill the seat were due on March 9th. And we are required to make an appointment by April 8th. So we do need to take the vote tonight. We had 2 residents submit their applications, which are the 2 that you just nominated. And the changes that I was mentioning in the past year took effect on May 15th of 2021. So that is why we are taking the vote tonight.
All right,
And
thanks
Mr.
for that.
Chairman, can I point out something?
Yep.
Given the concerns by a Selectman Canty, if either of these candidates are on the line to trump for themselves, I think it might be wise to give them an opportunity to do so.
Sorry, Dan, I couldn't hear the second sentence you said.
Oh, that's okay. Given Selectman Canty's comments earlier, it might be wise to allow either of the candidates to speak up if they are online to speak for themselves.
It's a good point. Are either of the candidates on this Zoom call at the moment? If so, you can unmute yourself. I only see one, which is iPad 4 that is doesn't have a name associated with it. I don't see either candidate or anyone unmuting themselves. So with that, let's proceed to the vote. So Josh Antrim votes. Sue Bonner.
Mark Cullen votes Sue Bonner.
Okay, here's where I explain my vote, and that is based on her length of service and time in job, and what you gentlemen apparently are voting on. I also will vote for Sue Bonner.
I just want to say, Mr. Chairman, I was originally elected to the Naha Housing Authority back in 1983, if you can believe that. And Sue Bonner was on the Housing Authority at that point.
Wow.
So she certainly has the experience. I do appreciate Kathleen Baldwin for taking an interest in this, and hopefully in an opening in the next election, she could put her name in.
Yeah, I mean, we continue to have what I call a good dilemma, which is more volunteers for these committees and boards than we have slots. So it's a good problem to have. So definitely hats off to both Susan Bonner and Kathleen Baldwin for putting their names forward. Okay, next is vote to post the annual town election warrant. Do we have a motion there?
I move that the Board of Selectmen execute the warrant for the annual town election to take place on Saturday, April 30th, 2022, from 7 to 8 p.m. at the Nahant Town Hall, 334 Nahant Road, Nahant, Mass. 01908.
Seconded.
Seconded. Any discussion? Basically, this just lists the openings that people will be voting for on April 30th. And that's something I think we have to sign the paper and turn it into town hall tomorrow or so. Any other discussion? Hearing and seeing none, roll call vote.
Gene Canty, aye.
Mark Cullen, aye.
Josh Antrim, aye. The next item on the agenda is vote to approve employment contracts for the Nahant Police Department, Nahant Police Department Chief, Nahant Fire Department Chief, and DPW Superintendent. We're gonna postpone this item till the next meeting while a few details of these contracts are being worked out. So that'll be on the agenda at the next meeting. Next item on the agenda is ongoing business. The first item there is the town administrator goals. So I've received the goals from the other selectmen and from the town administrator himself, and I think those look good. So I will take the next couple weeks editing those and eliminating the overlaps and stuff like that. But and we'll read through each of those goals at the next meeting to get that process going. I think this is another thing that I'm glad we were able to implement, setting the goals for the town administrator for the coming year. It's helpful, I think, for the town to be able to benchmark progress made, and good for the administrator as well to be able to measure himself against those goals. So I think this is a nice policy that we got started last year and continuing this year. So next meeting we'll read off those goals, and everyone will know what we have planned.
Will that include any overage of 2021 goals?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's, I know some of those goals for 2021 are what we call ongoing, producing a balanced budget, working with the accountant, and some of those general governance things I think will be continued.
I'm just suggesting, Josh, that maybe we go through those quickly and then go right into the 2022.
Yeah, at the next meeting, do you mean? Because I honestly don't have them collected in one place right now.
Okay.
Yeah, so let's do that. At the next meeting, we'll read off the goals for 2022 and just take the opportunity at that point to remind them what the goals were for last year and which ones are sort of continuances of those goals. So yeah, that sounds good. But next meeting, I guess.
Thank you.
Next item is Naha, 9 Nahant Road update. So this is a property known as the Howe Estate. We had submitted a CPC application in the event that the auction, the HUD auction was not successful. There were too many unknowns in terms of, you know, when the HUD auction would be, if it would be successful, is a large amount of money. And so the Board of Selectmen and Town Administrator have withdrawn that CPC application. So there's, it's still important for us, and we're still striving very hard to recover the deferred taxes on that property, which are in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. So that is really the limit of our town participation in the disposition of that property at this time. I did see that there is a commercial real estate, I shouldn't say, I don't mean commercial real estate, I mean a real estate company sign up for the property, and the heirs, the children of the deceased former owners have been in touch with Town Hall to inquire about what the back taxes owed are. So it seems like they are planning to try to sell the property, presumably in advance of a HUD auction. So that is potentially a good outcome for the town of Nahant, because it provides an avenue for us to collect the deferred taxes. So that's what we're focused on at the moment. I don't know, Tony or Gina, Mark, if you have anything else to add on this topic?
No,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
I have a text in the chat from Michelle, who has a question on this topic. Would you like to open this up to?
Can we, let's just get to citizens. Can we handle that in the citizens forum?
Sure. Thanks for everything you said. I think that you covered it, perfectly. At the end of the day, we want to present questions in the forms of articles at town meeting that are, provide the residents who are voting on the, future of the town with as much information so they can make an informed decision. And, as you mentioned, it was apparent, that we weren't going to have, the information necessary to do so for this town meeting. So, that I think that played a big factor in it as well, but you covered that. So thank you.
All right. Next item on the agenda is to vote to open the annual town meeting warrant and send to the Advisory and Finance Committee. We have a motion there.
I move that we vote to open and close the annual town meeting warrant and send it to the Advisory and Finance Committee.
Second.
For this,
Okay, so we have a copy of the proposed warrant in our email. Did you have some commentary you wanted to make on the proposed warrant, Tony?
Yes, I have it shared on the screen as well. This will be available on the website as well, and we'll be sending this over to the Finance Committee. I just wanted to, the last time we discussed the warrant, there were a few articles that were still being drafted, so just wanted to cover those. These initial articles here are all stuff that we've already covered and stuff that you see pretty much every single year. So I'm going to scroll through here. Article 16, release funds from transportation network. This is a new requirement. Essentially, any type of Uber or Lyft that enters the town, we get a very, very small percentage of that revenue sent to us from the Division of Local Services. Our total for last year was $590.20, but we are required to appropriate it at town meeting. So that's a new article that we have to take on. The next article, 17, is, the most important article, I think. I mean, they're all important, but this is a big one. This is authority, providing the town the authority to borrow $20 million through the Massachusetts Clean Water Trust. I've presented on this article to the Finance Committee. I will be doing, other presentations about this article and the rest of these articles as we get closer to town meeting. But this essentially sets up the town for the next 10 years of sewer related capital needs, and it secures our award of funding through the Clean Water Trust, which is a low interest, long-term borrowing funding source. Community preservation articles aren't in here yet. I know that they're meeting with the Finance Committee tonight. I assume we're going to be getting those articles very soon. We don't typically make any changes to those, so we'll be adding those in once they're finalized and they come in, get sent to us. Article 24, public safety, Naha Fire Department, Naha Police Department building study. In a previous version of the budget, we were allocating around $500,000 for this process, split between half of it being borrowed and half of it using available funds. We've met with the architectural firm that the town had actually worked with in 2017 and got an updated scope of services to get through what I call phase 1 is a feasibility study, and phase 2 would actually be a schematic design. They agreed that between $450,000 to $550,000 would be the right amount to get through phase 1 and phase 2. But we've decided to just attack phase 1 in this year's upcoming budget, which $125,000 is enough for us to accomplish that. So we're phase 1 would basically go through conceptual, different concepts, alternative analysis, needs assessment, a number of different things. And then once we go through that public process and, hopefully have consensus on one of the alternatives, then we could move to a borrowing article or, future funding source for phase 2. So I think this is a better approach. Go ahead.
Tony, would phase 1 include siting?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's going to look at the existing buildings, whether it makes sense to, make significant investments into the existing buildings, whether it makes sense to, build 2 new buildings, whether it makes sense to build 1 combined building, and where those would be located and what those options would look like. Article 25, this is accepting paragraph B and a half of section 4 of chapter 32. Essentially what this would allow is that for call firefighters, they could buy back their years of service towards their retirement. It doesn't have any cost to the town. It also, provides an added incentive to get involved in our call firefighters department. Article 26 is dog bylaw. So I have the track changes here on the screen. Essentially what we did here was the existing bylaw has two different sets of fine structures. So we eliminated one and we increased the fines. We also provided a more defined definition for doggy beach. So as you can see right in that first paragraph of section A, for the purposes of this section, doggy beach on Castle Road opposite of Coast Guard Station does not extend to the beach behind the residential area of Castle Road. That's been a contentious issue for us and the doggy beach area. Amending section B, you can see we went from a 10, first offense, $10 fine, second offense, $25 fine, third offense was a $35 fine, and fourth offense was a $50 fine. There was also no time frame as to when those offenses, how they sequence. So you could have, your second offense could be 6 years after your first. And we've actually ran into that issue. So we made it clear that, these offenses only increase if they happen in the same 12-month period. And we increased it, to 25, 50, 75, and 100. And then the last part here is, as I mentioned, striking the old, the second set of fines that used to be featured in the dog bylaw that didn't equate to the first fine structure. So we got rid of it and, made it. Article 27, Board of Appeals membership. This is a charter change. Dan, feel free to jump in here if I am incorrect on anything, but
Okay.
Our charter says 3 or 5 members, and our zoning bylaw says 5 members.
No, the charter says 3 members.
Charter says 3, but our zoning says 5.
Right.
And in practice, we've been using 5.
Decades.
So we can't have a bylaw contradict the charter. So this is to change the charter to say that the ZBA will be a 5-member board.
And just to be clear, Tony, as you and I discussed, this is really the first step. The next step is to put it on the next annual ballot, which will then go to the people, and they will vote, assuming it gets past town meeting, then they will vote like they would in 3 weeks or whatever, to increase that membership to match, to agree with the zoning bylaws.
Mhm. Does the legislature have to approve that, Dan?
Well, it will go to the AG for approval, yes, at some point. So they are this stage, yeah.
But changing the charter, does the legislature have to approve like a home rule type of petition type thing?
No. It just goes to the AG. And there's
Okay.
there's actually a form that we follow. I think it's a Form 7 or a Form 5 that literally, Mark, has a step-by-step check mark list of things.
Okay.
I think that, Mark, I think that's an alternative process you could follow. I think you could change the charter through a home rule petition, but
That's true, yeah.
this process doesn't, this is separate. This is a different way of going about it.
Okay.
Article 28 is a stormwater bylaw amendment. This is to increase its scope and to come into compliance with the 2016 Nifties general permit for stormwater discharges. We're reformatting Article 16. We're adding an administrative approval process for land disturbances between 600 square feet and 1 acre. We're adding language that prohibits the illicit discharge into town storm drain systems and we're adding definitions to account for the items listed in section 2 and 3. A full copy of this is available at the clerk's office. Dan and I briefed the planning board on this change last night. It does not make any changes to the planning board's current authority. It doesn't add anything. It doesn't take anything away. It's just an add. This adds to the stormwater bylaw in an administrative capacity. Article 29 is authorization to borrow $500,000 for funds, costs and fees associated with pursuing grants, loans, and similar funding sources for climate change preparedness projects on coastal town properties. Essentially, when we go for grants for either MVP, CZM, hazard mitigation, to do a dune project or a seawall or any of the those are many times, pretty much all the time, those are matching grants, and you are more competitive if you already have matching grants approved through the town meeting process. So by approving this, we can check that box off in the application process. We can also use these funds, not only to match a grant that we potentially could receive, but we can also use the funds for engineering services and technical assistance to help put us in the best position to actually achieve those grants. And then lastly, the Article 30 is the lowlands drainage. This is borrowing of $550,000. Last year at town meeting, we passed a $100,000 funding article to hire an engineer to look at the lowlands drainage, stormwater drainage issues. That process is underway. This borrowing would allow us to program some of the recommendations or all the recommendations, depending on what they come in at once the engineer finalizes their process. This is basically to use for the construction work related to, their recommendations. It's right in front of we received a citizen petition, $400,000 for a similar task. The amount we felt wasn't enough, and the language was a little too restrictive, where we want to really want to have an engineered based solution, and the citizen petition seems to already pick one potential solution and eliminates the ability to spend money on other recommendations that come out of the engineering study. So that one, we have a neighborhood meeting with the folks in the lowlands scheduled for next week, where I will be speaking with them about our article, introducing them to the engineer and giving them an update on the progress we've made since town meeting. That's all. Any questions?
No.
When's the lowlands meeting?
What's that, Gene?
When is the lowlands meeting?
Tuesday night, 7:30. I'll send you the invite.
Great, thank you.
So I do notice, so next Wednesday is the 13th. I know the engineering firm gives us monthly status reports on the 15th, I think, of the month. So, and I know I don't need to tell you this, Tony, but please keep pressure on them, because these articles that we just discussed are dependent on their output, their deliverables from that study. So we just don't want that. We just don't want them to drag on too long with the study that's currently underway. So keep pressure on them to to wrap it up so that we're a little more informed when town meeting rolls around.
Definitely, definitely. And like I said, they're going to be on the neighborhood meeting as well. So they'll be able to give an update in advance of the, the formal written update that they provide me.
Good. Yeah. All right, are we ready to vote to close the annual town meeting?
Close the warrant.
We need to do the budget adjustments first.
Nope, you can close the annual town election warrant.
I
The
move-
town meeting warrant.
Not the town election warrant, the town meeting warrant.
Yeah.
I move to close the annual town meeting warrant and send it to the Advisory and Finance Committee. Is that what we're doing here?
Yep.
Yes.
Second,
Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, roll call vote.
Gene Canty, aye.
Mark Cullen and I.
Al Shandrum, aye. We have a vote to approve the FY23 budget adjustments and send to the Advisory and Finance Committee. We have a motion there.
Yeah, a vote to approve the fiscal year 23 budget adjustments and send to the Advisory and Finance Committee.
Second.
Okay, I know we sent some spreadsheets, Tony. Is that something you want to share on your screen? And
Yep. Okay, so the budget adjustments here are really featured in this yellow column. The first three that say $0 is because we actually did those on March 16th. So I'll start here under Town Hall Capital. Previously at 60,000 is going up to 90,000. As I mentioned before in the when I was talking in the warrant, and that we reduced the amount of money that we're putting towards the public safety building, that freed up some extra funds to be distributed amongst these line items. So that's where this extra money's coming from. This extra $30,000 is based on a formal quote received from Davco, a company that actually is keyless entry systems. What this project would do is, one, put keyless entry on our public bathrooms, and it's all operated by the cloud. So we could actually set up automatic lock times on those public bathrooms. Obviously, you're still able to get out of the bathroom, but it would lock the doors so that you can't get in after a certain time, and they don't open until a certain time in the morning, instead of having them open all night long. We'd also like to put one at the town hall on one or two of the doors. This would be helpful for when we return to in-person committee meetings. Instead of handing out keys to every committee member, we could provide them a code or a key fob that we can turn on and off based on their status with the committee, and they would be able to use that to get into the building for their committee meetings after hours. The next one is police capital. This was $65,000 before. It's now $85,000, although we were always going to be using $85,000 towards the improvements at the police department. We're using $20,000 from an alternative source. So we're just changing where the funding's coming from. Fire capital, same explanation. Emergency management capital. This was based on a professional quote that we received from I forget his first name. His last name was Price. and I forget the name of the business, but essentially he came in and gave what this project is for is to do a drone survey base mapping of our coastal properties. And they actually, it helps with, when we have storms and we claim damage to our insurance or through FEMA, that we can show what existed in these properties prior to storms. It also sets us up for post-storm and annual additional surveying so that you can run comparisons. And it's really cool technology, the way that they do it. A lot of coastal communities use this company. So it helps with grants, it helps with insurance claims, it helps show what the impacts of climate change and storms are to our properties.
That's not Blue Sky, that the same company that's doing this survey, the topographical survey associated with the lowlands drainage study?
No, it's a different company. It is GPI is the name of the company. And I'll forward you the quote that we received.
All right.
Really, really cool technology. They do the drone footage, and then they've partnered with an engineering firm that takes that footage, does 1-inch topographical engineering, and provides you CAD mapping that will show you, you can scroll your mouse left to right across a bird's eye view of the beach, and it'll show you how much sand and material was on the beach before the storm and after. So really helpful for climate change related projects. DPW capital. This was 27,000. We've added 30 to make it 57. We expect, we're doing a sign and sidewalk audit. We expect a capital plan to come from that. And so we added $30,000 in here so that we could, program some of the recommendations that, come from that audit. And beaches and parks capital, we added 30,000 here as well. We have a couple locations around town that, need fence repairs or new fencing or painting. And that's what we received quotes for that. And that's how we came up with this dollar amount.
All right, those look good. Any discussion?
Tony, chance of having the signage done prior to this season?
Potentially, I'd want to see, we might be able to use Chapter 90 funds for signage that we haven't utilized yet this year. We were going to be using that along with new Chapter 90 money and borrowing to accomplish some paving that's long overdue. So once we get the report back, we could, take a look at what we have for available funds and, see if we could get some stuff done before the next fiscal year.
Is that report going to be put on a GIS platform?
Yes.
Okay.
And it will show you existing signage, and then they will update that once you put new signage up.
Okay, great.
Hey, Tony, just a quick question. Are those additions that you just went through increases or decreases from other budgets?
It's a shift mostly. As I mentioned, we had an extra $100,000 that was in the budget going towards the public safety building, but once we got the updated scope and realized that we only needed 125,000 for phase one, that extra 100,000 we could shift to these other areas. We also had an extra $50,000 in there for the Council on Aging kitchen. However, Senator Crichton and Rep. Capano are advocating for that through the state budget. So it gave us, $100,000 to $150,000 of free cash that we could shift for other capital needs.
Right, well spent.
Any other discussion? Hearing, seeing none, roll call vote.
Gene Canty, aye.
Mark Cullen, aye.
Josh Hedrum, aye. The next item on the agenda is preserving East Point. I had hoped to have town council available this evening, but he had a conflict. I did confirm this afternoon that he'll be available to join us on the 20th, our next meeting. But I can provide a few highlights on the eminent domain case, the ADA eminent domain case. The written discovery phase ended March 31st. So what that means is both parties submit interrogatories, questions, and admissions, statements that are either admitted or denied. And both parties submitted those on the due date of March 31st. The next phase there is the disposition phase. That'll likely go on for 4 or 5 months. And this is where people are deposed to come in and give testimony over the next several months. In addition to the eminent domain case is the Article 97 case. There's a summary judgment hearing in Salem on May 20th for that. And a jury trial is scheduled starting October 31st. There's also the Conservation Commission denied Northeastern's request, and Northeastern is suing the Conservation Commission. That's ongoing. I don't think anything's happening until August on that, and similar situation with the planning board. So those are the 4 cases. Oh, excuse me, I had that backwards. So the planning board site plan review, nothing's happening there until August. The Conservation Commission is supplementary information due April 15th. And Northeastern's motion will be heard on April 29th. So those are the key dates on the pending cases for East Point. And as I said, hopefully, we expect that on the 20th, Jeff Blake will be able to join us and provide some more additional details. I don't know if anyone else has anything to add on East Point. If not, we can move on to the town administrator's report. Tony, I don't know if you're available to.
Yeah, I would just add, we were advised the state legislature had amended the outdoor dining service deadline date from April 1st of 2022 to April 1st of 2023. So I just wanted to provide that update, for the liquor licenses that we provided temporary outdoor service to. that approval now is extended for another year until April 1st of 2023.
Okay, that's good. So that's sort of automatic. In other words, we don't have to reissue them a license if they have an existing license. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yep. And I know we're waiting to hear on a cost change to change the plan for the Flash Road Playground courts. The painting of those courts didn't get done last fall because the weather turned cool, but they're ready to be painted, and a request has come in to revise the tennis court configuration to 1 tennis court and 4 pickleball courts. And we've asked for a scope change quote from the contractor, and sounds like that's imminent, Tony. So when we get that, we can figure
Yeah,
out.
so depending on the cost and, whatever, we also asked them to tell us, what these changes, what concerns they would have that these changes could potentially make to the, presentation of the final product, because some of the, tennis court posts are already anchored into the, into cement, which has a top layer of asphalt. Plus there was some new fencing requested in this. So you'd be cutting into the new top asphalt layer and laying footings down. So there'd be some patchwork. So we also asked about that. So as soon as we get the information from the contractor, we will evaluate it and, go from there.
All right, good. Sounds good. What else do you have on your report?
That's all for now. We've been, it's really been working on, the town meeting warrant, town meeting setup, CPC applications, working through the budget changes, getting prices and scopes and quotes, for all different types of work. This week, Allison, myself, and Zach are in procurement training. So we've been, pulled in a different direction this week as well. But, as I mentioned earlier, I know the reports I get from Zach are, they are some of the seasonal workers reported this week. So they are out, running, trying to get all of our properties, spring cleaned and open and ready for public use, and prepare for Memorial Day. So this year we'll have a full Memorial Day parade with the full Memorial Day ceremony at the cemetery. So a lot of work to do in the next 2 months.
Yeah, that's great news. Can't wait for the parade. We should mention that we talked, I think it was last meeting, about the requirement for MBTA communities for certain zoning. If you qualify as an MBTA community, and Nahant does, because of our proximity to the commuter rail station. Some of those requirements are pretty much unachievable for Nahant, like 750 multi-unit dwellings, which represents like half of our dwellings would have to become multi-unit, and 50 acres dedicated to multi-unit zoning. So I'll just mention that we've submitted a letter to the secretary requesting some changes to that, those regulations, at least in the case of Nahant. So I don't know if there's any details you.
Yes, thank you. Sorry for not bringing that up. Myself, Dan, we've had a lot of interaction with DHCD and MAPC and other communities. about the guidelines that were released, and we really wanted to get provide comments that were informed and accurate. So a lot of the work we were doing over the last month was trying to fully understand what the guidelines intentions were. There are many items in the guidelines that go beyond the statute. And so we sought to identify those, because those are the areas where DHCD has the flexibility to make changes in the guidelines they produced. Unfortunately, the town, for the town of Nahant, we cannot be exempt from this statute as an MBTA community. We're required by the statute now to have a reasonable sized multifamily zoning district. It isn't a production requirement, but it is a zoning requirement. But DHCD, is very pro housing development to try to combat, the ever increasing cost of housing in our state. So they understood that the current guidelines that they released, the draft guidelines they released, significantly impacted Nahant more than, any other community. And as you mentioned, it would require a zoning district that, it equates to 50% of our current housing units and about 8% of our land area. And that 8% is of total land area, which, if you consider the fact that 40% of our total land area is either in Wetland Protection Act or floodplain, it's a much higher percentage of, land outside of wetlands protection or floodplain that is actually developable. And so, they understood, the concerns that we raised. They did make statements of, that they were likely to make changes to the minimum housing unit number and the minimum acreage number. We recommended that they take a percentage-based approach instead of a set number, given that there's 175 MBTA communities of different sizes and shapes, and a more equitable approach would be a percentage base. And certainly we asked for a very low percentage. We recommended 10%, which would dovetail well with the 40B requirement of 10%. So our comment letter, it's long, it's detailed, but it's available on nahant.org under community, and there's a link there to the mass.gov website if you want to look at what the draft guidelines included. We'll also be adding a support letter that we received from Senator Creighton and Rep. Capano, and I believe the planning board is intending to add a support letter as well. So all that's available or will be available on nahant.org. And happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Tony, isn't there a mileage factor included as well?
The statute says that the reasonable size district shall be within a half mile of the nearest MBTA station if applicable. So the statute, now MBTA station is defined as a structure. We don't have one in town. The closest one is over at North Shore Community College, and the half mile mark is just about our town boundary at the Rotary. So we mentioned that in the letter and in our conversations that, developable land in Nahant is 2.5 miles away from the closest station. The statute does give them flexibility as far as where to require the district, and their guideline provided for that as well. So, For communities like ours, their guidelines allow for the zoning district to be farther than a half mile from the closest station. Even though that, that really, in speaking with Senator Creighton, and even when Secretary Keneally, in meetings with him and other members of DHCD, they fully admit or realize that the intent of the legislation is to promote multifamily housing near MBTA stations. When it comes to zoning, it's really hard for the state to come up with a one-size-fits-all approach. And that's part of the point we were making here is we're a classic example of why you can't do that.
I mean, this would be a very fundamental change to the zoning of Nahant, and in my opinion, not a favorable change.
Yes, it would.
We also asked in conversations and in our letter for two more things that I think are important. One, that as they receive these comments and they consider changes to their guidelines, that they engage us again so that we can be extra helpful in what those changes might be, instead of just going right to a final set of guidelines.
Yeah.
Two, because they continuously responded to our concerns, some of our concerns, by saying the statute doesn't allow us to provide that to you. An example, an exemption or a waiver. We asked that they would they support, legislation to amend the statute to give them that ability. So I'm eager to hear their response on those two as well. If the changes to their guidelines don't satisfy our concerns, then we have, we don't need their support. We could certainly request special legislation to change this statute to provide a waiver for a community like ours. Or we could go for a statute change to, for the town of Nahant not to be considered an MBTA community. That the latter is much more of a drastic effort that, I don't think is, we'd have to have more conversation about, but, I did look up the ridership data. The bus comes to town, supposedly it's supposed to come into town 5 times a day. I think it only comes into town twice a day, in the morning and at night. And the ridership is less than a person per ride. So it's not, it's not like we have a very active usage of the bus service here in town. So, it's an option to us if we, are unsatisfied with the changes to the guidelines.
All right, so more to come when we get a response to our letter.
Yep.
I noticed on the agenda you have under Town Administrator's Report, the annual town meeting. I don't know if you had some words you wanted to say about that.
Well, we'll be having the town meeting inside. We're coming back to the town hall. We feel that we are in a position to provide a safe space. We had special town meeting in there back in September as well. We're not concerned about capacity issues. Looking at the articles in this warrant, we try to predict how many people are going to come to town meeting. And, we've seen between 450 and 500 people in the town hall at previous town meetings. I don't think we're going to have that many. So I think that we can, we're I think we're going to be able to handle it in the town hall in one day. So expect to be in the town hall if you plan to come to town meeting.
Okay, anything else in your report, Tony?
No.
All
That's
right,
good, thank you.
moving on to citizens forum. Anybody that would like to ask a question or comment? I see Michelle Capano's hand is up. You want to unmute yourself, Michelle?
Hey, thanks. Good evening. So couple comments and couple
Would you
questions.
mind, just for protocol, name and address?
Sure. Michelle Capano, 29 Ocean Street. On the MBTA bus and our ability to support, the affordable housing needs. One thing I wanted to clarify on the bus, and I can speak from personal experience, the bus comes into town 4 times a day, twice in the morning and twice in the evening. Because of COVID, the ridership drastically decreased the last 2 years. But I do agree, right now it hasn't gotten back to the level it used to be, where it could have been as many as 6 to 8 people. And so at some point, businesses are going to ask their employees to come back, and that's something to consider. I do not want us to lose the ability to have that bus system, because that's so important. People's lifestyles will eventually change. They'll want to be more carbon friendly, and, being able to get the bus into Boston and to the train station is important. The second question I had is about 9 Little Nahant Road. So recently the official real estate listing was publicized, and I have some questions about the town's ability to collect on the outstanding taxes. The listing price is less than what I think some people would have expected, given the assessed value of the property. And in the listing, it's showing the size of the property is 14,000 square feet. And we know, according to the property records, it's 30,000 square feet, which raises a concern. Is there a possibility that the estate is looking to subdivide the property into a 14,000 square foot lot and a 16,000 square foot lot? And has the town been engaged with HUD in terms of any of those discussions? But more importantly, what is our position on the outstanding taxes? If they sell the house for less than what's owed between the outstanding mortgage and the taxes, what are we getting out of this?
Well, there were several questions in there.
May I address the first on the MBTA? I agree with you, Michelle. I think, I only mention it as an alternative, decision to potentially evaluate, given if the requirement is so burdensome of being an MBTA community on this multifamily zoning requirement. I appreciate your comment on the bus coming in more often than I thought. The ridership data I looked at went back as far as 2016, so pre-pandemic. But I agree with you. I'd hate to remove the town as an MBTA community, and
So
especially as a reaction to this requirement.
I will tell you one thing about the ridership from personal experience. It depends whether you're paying cash versus using a Charlie card. And the ability to get a transfer, because the transfer allows you one more free ride activity going from bus to bus or bus to train. And most of the time, the bus driver doesn't let us scan our Charlie cards, because most of us are getting a second transfer in Lynn to go get the blue line in Boston. So that's why the data on the Charlie card, on the ridership data, is really not accurate for us, because they're not really collecting the information from the Charlie card scans. So I'm telling you from personal experience,
no, that's
it saves me
interesting.
money, which is fantastic, but it's bad on the data side.
Yeah, that's a great comment. It's interesting. I didn't know that.
And hopefully we'll get some movement on altering the statute rather than, not being an MBTA community. So that's obviously option number one. So
Yeah, agreed.
on the 9 Little Hunt property, I'm looking at it on Zillow.com and on Realtor.com, and both sites listed as 0.71 acres, which is the 33,000 square feet or so. That
Yeah, I saw that too. But then it says 14,000 square foot lot. So either their math is wrong or they wrote a bad listing. It's something to either bring to HUD to say, hey, have your realtor correct it, because I think there'll be some concerns that it's a 30,000 square foot lot. So what are you doing?
yeah, they would have to apply to have that lot subdivided, and
Right.
we certainly haven't heard anything about that.
However, the listing price is a concern, right? And so again,
Yeah.
so
So your
what's
other
gonna
question
happen on
was,
what's
what are
owed
we
to the
gonna do
town?
about collecting the money? And the answer is everything we possibly can, because it's a lot of money, and so we're working to get that back.
I guess the question comes into play when they go, should they sell and get an accepted offer? Will we sign off on the lien certificate for the taxes? And can we hold up a deal because because of the outstanding taxes?
The chairman, I can probably step in and.
Yeah. please, Mr.
First of all, it's not HUD's listing. They don't have the ability to sell. The only thing they can do is put it to auction at the moment. The listing you see is actually coming from the estate. Now,
Okay.
the estate is only getting involved now because we condemned the Board of Health condemned the building, and now they no longer have anyone living there as on April 1st, I think it was. So now it's vacant, and now I guess they're incented to try to sell it. Now, why didn't we consider this before? Because they were nowhere to be found. We only were dealing with HUD, and the estate heirs, I should say, just sort of scattered. I think the sister, I think, is in Texas. Brother, I believe, is in Rhode Island, and I don't know where anyone else is. So they weren't even part of the conversation until the past maybe month or two. Now, in terms of this is where it gets really tricky, and unfortunately, doesn't look fantastic for the town. The overdue taxes you see aren't really overdue; they were deferred. They were deferred since 1995 pursuant to a program that allows seniors that have been in town for a long time with a low enough median income, or income, I should say, to take advantage of a senior tax deferment. Now, the Pizarroses started that in about 1995, and God bless them, they lived until they were like 90 something. So they really took great advantage of that. The problem comes in where in about 2006, they then again went ahead and got a reverse mortgage on the same property. So you might say, well, they're kind of double dipping, and you'd be right. But there is a clause in the statute for senior tax deferments that say that senior tax deferments actually are secondary to reverse mortgages. When I've spoken to my colleagues around the Commonwealth and even the state, no one's even heard of this sort of scenario, because these folks have almost maxed out their ability, because there's only a percentage they can take out in terms of tax deferments, and they almost maxed out their ability to take the percentage of equity in their home. And that leaves us being, at the moment, secondary to the HUD lien, which is approximately 1.06. It's probably a little bit more now because time has passed. So we are fighting with HUD, as Josh mentioned, and basically saying this is not what the statute intended. We were first and right, first in time, even if you can take priority after 2006. They, of course, sort of shrug their shoulders and say, well, this is what the statute says. And we said, well, we're not satisfied with that, and we're going to fight you on it. And they, at that point, have decided to get a more thorough appraisal of the property. I'm not quite sure where that is. The U.S. Attorney, I exchanged phone calls today, but did not speak. So we're looking at that with regard to HUD. With regard to the homeowners, I'm sorry, should I strike that? With regard to the estate, my understanding is that the brother in Rhode Island is the the administrator. And he's trying to sell it. He tells me he thinks he can get 1.7, which would cover both liens. And that's be great if he could. When I spoke to the sister today, she had nothing to do with that, and she was looking to buy it on her own. But that call was cut short because she had some work to do or something. So these are ongoing conversations, but now we have another ball in the air, being the estate trying to sell the property. And the signs you see at 9 Little Nahant Road have nothing to do with HUD. It's the sun and, well, it's really the sun trying to sell the property.
Okay, that's great, Dan. I guess the other, something for later is, at least when I took a look at the mortgage documents that were available online, what I question is how the lender allowed them to get the reverse mortgage where the mortgage clearly says that your debts need to be paid first.
Well,
And there was,
yeah.
but think about this, the taxes were outstanding, even though they were deferred, they still needed to be paid for in order for them to sign off for a new mortgage. And so it's a stickiness around the lender's ability to allow that mortgage to be papered, but didn't put in a clarifying addendum regarding the reverse mortgage and that the taxes were deferred. And that can happen, but there's no paper on file showing that.
Well, these are the arguments we're making with HUD, and you can
Okay.
stay tuned because there's very well might
Thank
be an
you.
ongoing thing. You're welcome.
I see Brendan Bernard Olmsted's hands up. Yeah. You want to unmute yourself,
Yep.
Brendan?
Brendan Bronick said 2 Summer Street. I had 2 questions. One about the, I guess it was a cost item for using drones to survey our coastline. Does that also include a LiDAR survey, or is it only just a visual survey?
I'll have to double check if LiDAR survey is included in the scope of services that we were provided. The final contract, isn't signed because we need funding approved first. So it's something that, we could ask, even if it's not in the current scope, that we could ask. I remember them talking about, it's referred to as orthomosaic imagery. I think it's similar to LiDAR, but it's something we could, we're not in a final contract or a final defined scope of services at this point.
Okay, yeah, because LiDAR might be more beneficial if we're talking about changes in the sand or changes in the cobblestone movements. Because you could, it would allow us to more easily see, I guess, those minutia changes in elevation, if the storms are depositing or taking material away.
Okay.
And then my second question is I know at last town meeting, there was a question about a firearms discharge distance. And I know it was sent to committee. Is there a committee that's studying it, or has there been any update on that? I hadn't heard anything in a while.
It's
Really
actually-
sense of the, sorry. Go ahead, Tony.
Okay, sorry, Mr. Chairman. It was actually sent to the chief of police to provide a report. So the plan is to have that report included in the finance committee book that will be distributed for town meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
And I see Karen Ragnacki's hand is up. Karen, you want to unmute yourself?
Yes, good evening, everyone. Karen Rignati, 14 Howe Road. I have 2 questions. The first question is about next door and 9 Little. And so in the event that, let's say, the real estate agent is not able to sell it for whatever reason, it doesn't go through, what is the next step? Would HUD then go back to doing an auction?
Yes, Karen, that would likely be the next step.
Okay, just trying to understand the clarity we here.
In fact, to be quite frank, Karen, I think they were all ready to go along that path until the estate jumped in and said, well, let us try to do it. But they were
Yeah.
never telling us that when we first got started, like I said.
Yeah, oh yeah, we were surprised too. Second question is about town meeting, and there's some of us, like myself, that haven't been able to be vaccinated because of health reasons, and just wondering if there is a way that you might be able to accommodate us. And I don't even know what that would look like, but for us to be able to come to town meeting, and I don't know if it's like a section or a way to broadcast it outside or in the parking lot or something, so that, because the numbers are still, we keep getting new variants and all of that. So that was just my second question.
It's a tough one. I mean, obviously, people are welcome to wear masks, and I think we'll have, filtration systems and fans and open windows. I know we looked into the possibility of remote locations last year before we finally settled on the outdoor meeting, and it was pretty complicated. So.
Mr. Chairman,
That might
also
be the whole
point
story.
out,
I don't know if there's other, anyone else want to chime in?
Yeah, and I can tell you that we will have, as you mentioned, open windows, air purifiers. It will be a safe space. The trouble with extending the area outside of the voting of the town meeting space is by law, you have to be checked in to the meeting as a registered voter. There has to be if you had a separate space outside, you'd have to have a separate moderator, and the two moderators would have to be able to communicate with each other, and so would the two spaces. So it gets really troubling when you have split up locations.
Yeah, I understand, Tony. I understand. I just wanted to ask, or I didn't know if maybe there might be like one section, maybe near some windows or something that, those of us that are in this situation could just.
I'll save you a seat by the window, Karen.
Thank you. I appreciate
it.
But
But all joking aside, when we did the meeting in September, we loaded the place up with air purifiers ahead of the meeting and left them on during the meeting. And a resident actually measured the particulate matter in the air during the meeting. Now, obviously, there was less people at that meeting than probably what we'll have at the upcoming meeting, and it was much faster. But those air purifiers that we bought and have installed into the main hall do an unbelievable job of keeping the air clean. And people are welcome to wear masks as a second, as a supplementary way to, protect yourself if you still feel uncomfortable.
yes, and I think if there was, anything that could be done so that ahead of time, so that the meeting could be as short as possible, so just, having time to read everything, or I don't remember what you did before, Tony. But, I think in some cases you've done certain things, and I'm sorry, I can't recall.
Yeah, I do. I have open meetings at the town hall, and I'll do them available by Zoom, and we'll broadcast them so that what we tried to do is answer questions and explain what the different articles are. And so this way people are more informed heading into the town meeting. And it seems to have helped in the past. So we'll definitely be doing that. And as we get closer to the meeting.
That would be so great. I so appreciate it. And so thank you. And thank you for taking my questions.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chair, can I point out that folks in Karen's position can actually send a proxy to town meeting pursuant to our charter that allows that. So that's an alternative to folks that are really concerned.
I'm sorry, I
Can you
didn't hear.
explain that a little bit, Dan?
You can send a proxy to vote on your behalf at town meeting if you are concerned about actually going there physically. You can send a proxy on your behalf.
That's great. I didn't. Thank you, Dan. Thank you. I didn't remember that. So yes, thank you. That's a great idea. Just in case,
Yep.
It's always nice to go and see everyone. But yes, thank you, everyone.
let's get some information, let's get some information out on how people can do that, Dan and Tony. Get it on the website or something like that, because I'm sure Karen's probably not the only person interested in this, so that's an interesting thing. I didn't realize that could be done.
Dan, I'll follow up with you afterwards. Are you sure they can vote on their behalf, or is it that they can?
That's what a proxy does. That's their job, is to vote on behalf of someone who does it. Yeah, we'll talk offline on that, and I'll show
Yeah,
you
let
what
me-
we're looking at.
There was something quirky about the way it was written. Let's revisit it and get the right info out.
Sounds
Or,
good.
or as an
Right.
alternative, is it possible to vote beforehand and submit a drop off a ballot or somehow, or do it online, or I don't know. I think you have-
Unfortunately, the rules of open town meeting don't allow for that.
Yeah, that's why I thought you have to be in attendance, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Okay.
Tony, I would suggest that you, Dan, and Dave Conlon get together and talk about that.
Yes, and Diane, the clerk,
Yeah.
as well.
And the clerk, yes. Mhm.
All right, any other citizen forum comments or questions? If so, unmute yourself or raise your hand or put something in the chat. Anything in the chat, Tony?
Nothing in the chat.
All right, well, great. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Roll call vote.
Gene Canty, aye.
Mark Conlon, aye.
Josh Antrim, aye. Thank you, everyone.